Thank you, Laura, and good morning. Good morning. Woo! So my story, at 15, my family packed up the car, the moving van, and moved from Pittsfield, Maine to Arkansas. How many of you have ever moved during your high school years? So you know. So imagine it in the 1970s. No cell phones, no Facebook, no Instagram, and worst of all, no Snapchat. I know, hard to believe. So when you pick up and you leave your great life and your friends in Pittsfield, Maine in the 1970s, it was pretty devastating. Well, I'm not going to dwell too much on the fact that I was leaving Maine and going to Arkansas. It was a great opportunity for my dad. We were very proud of him, and it made me get closer to my grandparents who lived in Arkansas. But for me, it was a huge culture shock. I struggled to understand my classmates, literally. I didn't understand some of the words they were using, and they would only call me by the name Yankee. They wouldn't even use my first name. But I didn't make life easier for myself. I wore that I was from Maine right on my sleeve, and I bragged about how great Maine was. But then I thought I had arrived when I was invited to a Halloween party. But they were prepared to set me straight. They hung me out of a barn loft by my ankles until I would say that the South was better than the North. Let me just start you off with leadership lesson number 1. Pick your battles. Pick your battles. I said the South was better. They pulled me back in. So I have to tell you, once I decided that I had to survive and thrive where I was, I also knew that I would not blend in. I can remember coming home and literally asking my mother, do I have a personality? Because I was struggling to relate. My aspirations, my dreams, my ideas were so different from my classmates. The biggest extracurricular activity for girls my age in my high school was Future Homemakers of America. Now, that was different from the plan I had. There were girls at 15 who were getting engaged. And again, I couldn't relate to that. So things got pretty lonely. So leadership lesson number 2, it can be lonely. When you stake out your direction, your plan, your priorities, expect to be alone from time to time. But it wasn't too bad. I got to watch a lot of Andy Griffith reruns with my mother. Do you guys even know Andy Griffith? Okay, good. All right. We had only one car. My father worked nights, and we lived way out in the country, and the nearest mall was, there wasn't a nearest mall. The good news is that with all that free time, it gave me the chance to focus on my next stage of leadership. Leaders make plans. That's leadership lesson number 3, by the way. Leaders make plans. Anyone want to guess what my plan was? Get out of Arkansas. So I did this debate. I did a presidential debate in high school, and I was the only girl. And I got a ton of grief about my positions and that I was the only girl. But you know what happened? I made a connection. A local lawyer decided that he saw something in me. And he was the person who ultimately wrote a letter of recommendation for me to become a United States congressional page. And of course, you know what the most amazing thing was about that opportunity? It was not in Arkansas. Okay, there was definitely so much more to that opportunity. But at the time, I was certainly focused on that short term. But I want to focus on here that next leadership lesson. It's about mentors. Look for people who can give you advice, people you can trust, people that you can look up to. These mentors can be your key to success, and you should always be on the lookout for that mentor. Let me tell you a little secret. When a person who has had a long, successful career sees someone with potential, just starting out in life, we want to pass that on. You know, I recently was at a dinner with scholarship students from the George Mitchell Institute, and there was a young man at my table, and we had a chance to talk. He's a senior at UMO, he's studying finance, and I gave him my card, and within 24 hours, he had emailed me asking to follow up. And I was able to immediately connect him with someone to just start talking about leadership job opportunities in Maine. Make sure you are making those connections and taking advantage of those mentors. I should also add that when I was in Arkansas, I had no political connections, no money, no inside track. I had a plan and the unshakable belief that my future was exactly that. It was mine. You know what is so amazing to me now when I look back on my life? It's the fact that my path to leadership started when I was your age. I also want to say something about that 15-year-old girl that left Pittsfield oh so many years ago. Although I would never have admitted it then, that move to Arkansas, it was good for me. It challenged me every day, and I rose to that challenge. I did not give up. I didn't complain. Well, my mother might recall that just a little bit differently. And I didn't go on Facebook to cry about it. Oh, right, no Facebook. But I met the challenge head on. Isn't that what leaders do? And then at 17, my parents drove me to D.C., to Washington, D.C., and literally dropped me off. So I started my first day, I thought. I went up to Capitol Hill and said, I'm here for my job, I'm here to start school. And I was greeted with, you're here a month too early. That's it, that's all they said, you're here a month too early. With tears in my eyes, I go back to my dorm room. I'm 17, I have no money, I'm completely alone, my parents are back in Arkansas. I go back to my room, I pick up the phone, and I call my father, and I said the same thing. I said, I'm here too early. I'm here a month too early. What do I do? What do I do? And my father said in this syrupy, sweet voice, "What do you want Daddy to do? Do you want him to come to D.C. and fix it for you?" I slammed the phone down. I marched back up to Capitol Hill to the congressman's office and said, "You've got to give me a job." And it worked, but I was scared. But that fear, that being uncomfortable, made me take action. Leadership lesson number 5. There will always be setbacks and bumps and hurdles. Don't let those hurdles and bumps swallow you up. Use those opportunities to dig deep, to strengthen your resolve, your determination, to build your character, to motivate you. Embrace your challenges. Push the edges of your comfort zone. Because of Arkansas, I went on to graduate from high school in Washington, D.C. I had to be in school at 6 o'clock in the morning in the attic of the Library of Congress, and then I worked during the day in the United States House of Representatives. It was a chance of a lifetime, and I found peers who had similar dreams and similar aspirations. I was connected to this new community who shared some of my goals and ideas. It was hard to believe that that was just less than 2 years from when I was being hung out of a barn loft by my ankles. You just can't predict where you will next be. You have to keep moving forward. Of course, my escape from Arkansas did not last. My father insisted that I return to Arkansas to go to college. But the next leadership lesson, of course, is that your path is not always clear or straight. You've got to be prepared for the changes, for the diversity, for the challenges. After school, I went back to Washington immediately, packed up my car, and I worked on Capitol Hill as a legislative assistant. And then I worked in Atlanta, Georgia for the Equifax Corporation. You guys heard about Equifax? Yeah, I wouldn't want to be doing their media crisis management today. And then I came back to Maine. I could not wait to come back to Maine. And I ran a congressional campaign. And then my plan was get my candidate elected and return to Washington. My candidate lost. So leadership lesson number 7, be flexible and be ready that your plans are going to change. For over the 20 years after that, I worked in government relations, representing a number of clients here in Maine, in Augusta. But over time, I wanted to develop more of an expertise. So I took a risk. I left my private practice. I went to work for the Maine Hospital Association because I wanted to really dig in and learn about healthcare. You have to be prepared to take risks and be ready for the unexpected. After 11 years working for the Maine Hospital Association, I was ready for a greater challenge. I wanted to give back to my state. I wanted to be part of something larger, but I didn't know what it was. And this is a tough one to talk about because I would never advise doing this. But I left my job without a plan. I left my job not knowing exactly what I was going to do. I'm not sure, though, that things would have stayed, they would have worked out had I stayed in that job. It would not have allowed me to be as open to the opportunities and to new ideas about my career. My next path was to become the senior health policy advisor for Governor LePage when he was first elected. But never in my wildest dreams would I have expected that that position would so quickly turn into becoming the commissioner of DHHS. And just a few short weeks after becoming the senior health policy advisor, the governor asked me to be the commissioner, and this is how it went. He said, "I can't find anyone else to do the job. Will you do it?" Imagine that. No one wanted the job. This agency was known for constantly running out of money, losing money, computer disasters, and one crisis after the other. When Governor LePage asked me to become commissioner, I took on an agency that had a $3.5 billion budget, over 3,400 employees. I was scared. I would be responsible for children in foster care, adults with Down syndrome, the state's psychiatric hospitals, health care being provided to thousands of Mainers. I had never done anything like this. The hardest part sometimes of my days was putting one foot on the floor in the morning and getting out of bed and going back into work and taking on the challenges. And I would repeat to myself every day, facing all of the significant challenges, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You have to put one foot in front of the other. I'm not the same person who entered that Department of Health and Human Services 6.5 years ago. I was assigned the daunting task of transforming that agency, and while I doubt all the details necessarily matter to you, it will relate to all the discussions you're going to have today about what makes a leader. I could have just taken on that role and tried to survive, but I wouldn't have changed anything. I had to have courage. I had to have grit. I had to have determination. I had to have curiosity. I had to learn these issues, ask questions, and drive change. And one of the other leadership lessons that I quickly learned is that when I would walk into a room, people would study the words that I used, my facial expressions, the tone in my voice, my body language. Leaders are constantly modeling the behaviors that we want from others. And what I also knew is that when you're leading, when you turn around, you need to see people behind you, that you've convinced that team, those that you're working with, that they can follow you, that they can trust you, that you have credibility. So as Commissioner of the Department of Health and Human Services, I had the opportunity to test my comfort zones and to learn, even at that age, what it meant to continue to push my boundaries and to be a leader for the state of Maine. And I'm so proud of all of those accomplishments. It made me stronger. You know, I know that many of you here today have already faced some daunting challenges in your lives. And yet here you are. I promise, it may not seem it now, but you will be better. And you will be stronger as a result. So if you haven't started charting your course, get going. And if you have, congratulations. So remember a few things about being a leader. You need to pick your battles. You need to have a plan. You need to sometimes be prepared to go it alone, but be true to your principles. Find mentors everywhere. Embrace challenges and push past your comfort zones. Establish strong community connections. And be prepared that your plans will change. Be flexible. Those are the cornerstones of who I am as a leader today, many years later. I tell you this because this is the time. This is your time to set your leadership path. Don't wait. Start now. And to quote Beyonce, no, I'm kidding. I was just seeing whether or not you were still paying attention. Jack Welch, the former CEO of GE, wrote a book titled, "Control Your Destiny or Someone Else Will." I hope you all will take that to heart. Have a fantastic day. Good luck. Congratulations, and thank you.